So no personal events now. Remember, I still have my -1 quest pip and my adding 2 to difficulty with longboat as the swaggering.
I felt isolated, alone and idle on a busy vessel. Most days I groomed my horse, Ullr, ignoring questions I deemed dishonest. The helmsman Fáfnir was pandering, conferring over every wave. My permission was sought to change out sick rowers. As if that approval meant anything, I unsheened Ófóti, running a honing stone up the sword, finally ending the inane game. Only the voice seemed comforting, at times a solace, yet no crewman, and not the spirit, seemed a confidant. I did not try to befriend any of the obedient crew. Favoritism was avoided. Halfdan, my father, had advised that adventuring was the best way to find worthy companions. He meant the skilled, not the trusted. Halfdan was a chieftain who spoke freely only among family, and less to even those. To be silent was to rule. This he often said when the petitioners left. For now, I would settle on being a wordless leader. My soldiers, my sailors, my rowers, now my beaked and feathered Jenolin, and my bare-faced Deshii. The near-silent bears were the best company. I pointed my orders and the boat's heading to my crew as we navigated up the coast toward Varna. Voice could frustrate. Pick a title. Wind Whisper, or Wind Caller, or Wind Master. Which? Or which? Not that the specter would answer my questions. It spoke in song, not consultation. Voice arrived without warning, often in phrases too lightly spoken as I was distracted. Here, angles and Saxon sail, wider winds, sought by Britons, warsmith, hammer on wealth, Most words I half heard. Ring a bell, good fellow, and give notice. Was I the only one guided, bewitched? I certainly would not ask anyone else what was said and be thought insane.
And here comes my phase A. And I got myself a page. Now that's a knave. That guy that Ivan warned me about, he's going to show up. Maybe I'll be attacked by an ogre type of creature that comes onto the play, and I'll demonstrate some combat here. I'm outside of Varna, and most of the encounters now, because of that twist, are going to take place along the shoreline or slightly in. I go in to pick up supplies from Varna, and I'm approached by this man ogre, tusks for his teeth, and he threatens me.
The non-human turned to face me, and all I saw was a hog's tusks. Any teeth were masked by those gum weights. He likely was the biggest threat in this one-horse village just outside of Varna. His shirt was hair, and his club was crude, notched for each victim or gnarled from use as a toothbrush. He stood a foot above me and glared down, drool dripping out his mouth. He grunted an insult, a challenge. "Are you able to form words, Mastodon? Maybe you should carry a slate and piece of chalk." He didn't need to voice a threat. His smell arrived as a true affront, an offensive bitterness that caused my face to scrunch. The Black Sea had not the water to scrub his hide clean of fleas.
So I'm going to fight somebody, and it's going to be just one guy in threat that I need to defeat. One threat, but it's at a -1 quest pip and +2 if it's longboat. But I will give myself a little bit of an advantage here because I'm level 0 playing solo. And I'll say I'm going to take cards in combat, and all I'm going to do is take brash cards, either brash cups or bane cups, until I defeat him or get defeated myself. Here comes the first flip of my combat, and I got an ace of cups. I don't think it gets much better than an ace, but let's see what happens. Ace of cups, calmly restore the fractured and frozen hinges on your mail to work in order. Plate, scale, ring, chain, padded, studded, banded, splint. Don't D&D me, please. You're having trouble bending an arm. Success and dispatch one opponent against large plus adversaries. Is this guy large? Not large as in a true giant, true ogre. This guy is going to be large as in oafish, but he's not large plus adversary. I don't need one at level 0. When I go to level 1, I need to start getting a large one. And when I go to level 2, I need to fight a nasty one to check the ignoble. Well, there's plenty of other ignobles I can check besides combat here, but I'd like to check combat.
Right in the eyes. The ogre-man dusted me with magic powder. He may have been instructed to take me captive, or just knew from past victories that ransom was hefty, more so than a traveler's purse. I dumped ale in my eyes, cleared my vision. From a window peered 3 goblins. Those I recognized. Didn't stay captive, did you? Yet why were they after me? The trio would abscond and leave the nasty business of knife work to their duller cousin. My armor tightened, growing smaller and binding. More magic, I presume. The stink of goblin mischief stronger than the hog's sweat. The very links of my chain shirt were fusing. 100 days of sea salt and corrosion happening at once. I flipped a mahogany table and bought myself a moment to bend and strip out of the mail. If Tusklad could fight shirtless, then so would I. The southern Greek gods, ever watchful, enjoyed when the naked wrestled.
Regardless, gain 1 swaggering technique of your choice. Okay, this may be taken in any form, including on their vessel. I probably have had enough. Armor smithy on a 6. Now, am I an armor and smithy? If you haven't been playing along at home, you realize I'm not an armor and a smithy. But I do get, and should we get our first wizardry? You're a wizard, Harry. I'll be demigod.
I blocked with a footy, my ginn sword, only to find my weapon knocked from hand and sent afar. Might as well have been a mile, any distance out of reach. My palms stung. The beggar thumped, a smithy's anvil strike. I could hear him laugh, heavy spaced guffaws. With each chortle he spewed snot and spittle. I tore off a window's curtain and blanketed the shade across his face, tangled on his tusks, trying to gain 1 moment to locate my flung blade, again all too far removed. Assemble the bracelet bestowers. Conspirators concealed at ambush. Shower the walls with spears. Even before he unwrapped his eyes, he was swinging. I took a blow square. Still, my adversary's cudgel shattered into fire starter, pieces of whittled driftwood. With all his strength, he might have used a felled tree. I endured the break and was glad it was mostly branch that cracked, not ribs. I knew I was strong, was certainly fit. This seemed wrong. The magic he attempted to subdue might have caused his weapon to wither, yet that too seemed too convenient. Like every dog ever at play, he finally wagged his jaw enough to uncover his face. The look of hog tusks, staring dumbfounded at the small handle he still clung to, suggested this had never happened. His ever-trusty was gone. He even shed a tear before tossing what remained at me. He stepped to grapple. I was almost compelled to headlock, but opted not to give this brute that advantage. I wanted to crush his skull. With hands of Heracles, I jerked back and felt some shame. Called by Valkyrie to serve beer in the halls of the heroes. I'd rather be seated there among them. He pawed at my arm as I ducked his grapple. I surprised myself, bent his arm behind, jerked it up his back and felt the pop. How easy I caused this ogre's kin to wince and lurch away. He looked at me, now with fear, rubbing his shoulder. He would turn his failure into new assault. There seemed magic in this place, and that magic seemed to be me. I realized today I was not a mere Varangian. The fight had rinsed the floor and painted the walls with hurled cups of ale. Maybe I am chosen, destined to serve mead to the heroes, until the end of time, before the battle of Ragnarok.
I'm going to become a demigod by this action. I realize that maybe I have some divine blood in me that would give me that. I will try to roll 2 dice to get a 6. It's not longboat swaggering, so I don't add to the difficulty as my advantage. The advantage here is armored smithy. It's not a longboat swaggering. This one is Mount Radiant, but it could just as easily have been the longboat equivalent of F. But I do -1 for the quest pip. A 7 on 2 dice to win this battle. A 4. Well, I could curse my rolls, or I could curse roll 20. Gosh. Okay. I'm going to roll 6 times. Not that it counts, but just to prove that my dice are not ruined somehow. And I'll make it 6 times in a row. All right. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I apologize, ref. Yeah, you are rolling behind the screen and you're not cheating me. But I wouldn't be a player if I didn't question the referee from time to time. I missed.
With a grunt and mumble, he spoke.
Too strong for a waif.
He called me waif? My brother lost a tooth for voicing less. I charged reckless. He pounded on me, had me reversed, my arm pinned behind. Yet again the strong man seemed bewildered. To him, my shoulders should have cracked. My arm should have snapped. I could see that all his tried and true methods were proving inadequate. I broke free and watched him draw labored breaths. I hid my need for the same. What else do you have? I breathed in. Spawn of the sty. I breathed out. Maybe I should have fled as he kept his distance. Instead, I taunted. He too might be ready to run. He could plan and come back soon enough, but I would be prepared. My pride was confused. I had fought this foe as if he was a kinsman, a tormented brother, not an adversary I must kill. Admittedly, I was having fun. Who wouldn't upon finding that a 7-foot oaf was striking like a 7-year-old half-starved serf? Ófóti.
I am under the torn drape.
But here comes the next clubbing of combat. Now, it is a bane, and a bane, in this case a bane cup. I'm only taking cups, and what does it do? It gives me cups. No, that's an 8, a bane. Banes can result in wounds and damage and loss of swaggering, but they tend to be just a slightly easier roll. Even if you do not face Beast 11, you've read tales of far worse adversaries. Care to name one? Sure, Minotaurs are a worse adversary. A true ogre would be a worse adversary. This guy is no true ogre. Fail and suffer shaken penalty. Now, I am bold. I only suffer it for 1 round, but shaken would be another -2. Should I apply my energetic and grab the fury here? Well, let's see. A large plus adversary, I'm not. Flare, if this action occurs in an underworld, no, it doesn't. But I am not a cult scholar. It's a 7, and I'm going to need an 8 on 2 dice to avoid the penalty of being shaken.
If he was a minotaur, so I've read, the bones of my limbs would be shattered. If he was a troll, so I've heard in tales, my limbs would be on the floor, removed from my torso. He looked like an ogre, had the face of one. 2 of my brothers killed one, as I did my part slinging rocks. Stave off that smile. I was 8. Though some shots hit my kinsman, at least one struck the monster. I drew blood. I asked for a trophy, an ear, but my brothers pushed me away, left me with nothing but memories of that fight. So I knew what an ogre was. This was no ogre. Hogface was a very ugly dolt. Big man in a small place. He was breathing heavy. He had armed himself several times, only to lose his grip or have me wrench the object away. We had spilled enough ale to serve my ship. That made me sad. I steeled myself for the reckoning. The horns of Einherjar shall trumpet.
An 8 on 2 dice. Can I take one of those dice I rolled previously? 16. All right, that's good. I'm not shaken. We go right into another encounter here. Here comes our card flip. And it's going to be, now note this is a rod, but I'm by the definition of the battle that I stated at the very beginning, an easier battle where all my cards are cups. So it's a 6. Now it is a 6 cup. Now 6 tend not to be good, but at least it's not a bane. Unlike my brother Rusty, I don't love banes. Here comes my brash cup and a 6. Opponent stumbles while striking and falls before you. Success and dispatch him. Consider it a fail roll your utter bemusement at his buffoonery. Yet who will have the last laugh? Flair. If the character's not checked growth, he does so and becomes an obnoxious, sarcastic, arrogant person who wishes would sober up and get down to business. I have not checked growth yet.
I'm no teen prone to anger. My father taught me well. My brothers would never have let me live if I could not show restraint. There seemed no time when ad hominem attacks added anything to my courage. What had changed? I only had to retrieve Ófóti. I knew where the ginn blade lay. I had only to reach, pick it up, and gut this chimera of a man. My mind was drawn into conversation, even in the midst of the fight. Another part of me was brawling, dodging, toying. Something else was sharing my thoughts and hushing my protests. Why triumph today? Love life, not courage, not courage. Cease the carnage, delay. A humiliated enemy seemed better than a mere defeated one. This was not a Norseman's thoughts, any lessons of my youth. I was hearing someone else's desires, articulated and defying all tutelage. I found it fun to be arrogant, obnoxious, delighting in newfound strength. We shall use what works. Why should we feel ashamed?
So let's look at this. My action in the battle has changed my character. It sounds like something that every comic relief fantasy movie ever had until we finally got some serious ones that were created. D&D style movies that always had this mocking oath. Well, I am that mocking oath now, and I check growth for that. Growth are things that says leadership, comradeship, political ranks, gained and lost. I can maybe try to aspire to do away with that one day, but right now, a sarcastic taunter, that works for me.
The drinking rites in my father's halls cultivated some very fine wit. Many had just the retort, the perfect insult to level any braggart on every brag. The gifted do disarm with words. One may salute a character quick to eviscerate with quip. I unfortunately struggled to find an appropriate retort. I settled finally on making ogre-man furious by insulting the obvious. The shape of his tusks. I compared them to a forked infantile penis. His eyes transformed. All I could see was white. All color shrunk to a bead. No more games. Ófóti was back in hand.
As we move into the actual result of this from my 6, if skilled as a delver, difficulty reduces by 2. I'm not a delver. It's a 13 methodical. Now, I have the trait of methodical. And because I am methodical, I will roll 3 dice instead of the typical 2. But it's a hard roll. It's a 13 minus 1 for the quest pip. I need a 14 on 3 dice. Here comes my advantage dice. And I made my 13. I mock this man, and then I put him in his place. Did I stab him through? Probably. He's been dispatched.
I expected him to charge. Instead, he strode. Long, violent steps that echoed with each footfall. I took a step back. He reached and grabbed the edge of a table. He lifted it effortlessly. I knew the weight. I had barely overturned it earlier. He took another step toward me, raising the mahogany fully over his head, a boulder ready to crush. Emitting a groan, soaring into a roar, he straightened to down toss with all his fury. The floor broke open and the table was shattered. He stood empty-handed, but only for a moment, a tower before the few onlookers remaining, those peeping through doorway and window. Hogface sunk to knees, then folded backward. He gave me plenty of time, his downward crush too easy to sidestep. I slashed his neck open behind his ear along the spine.
Please, clean me now.
Said Ófóti.
Some oil, of course.
But I've won that battle. Now, because I won the battle, and it was against a foe that was equivalent to me in many ways, certainly wasn't somebody who was outclassed me totally, but he was not somebody that I outclassed. I can check my battle of military engagements, or I could check my heroics. Now, the thing about battle is you have to win something and achieve some objective. In heroics, you have to have a more heroic act than the last one you face. So that's a good starting heroic act, that I beat somebody about the same equivalent to me. Now, once I check another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ignobles, I will go up to level 1.
Though I hunted in the vicinity, the goblins were nowhere to be found. There was much to ponder. Voice was confused and seemed of 2 persuasions. I wondered, was this the Wind Caller, the enemy of Cherson I was warned about? A wizard that clouded minds here from across the Black Sea. That power might be just a hint of the enemy's prowess. He certainly could and did hire an agent here. The ogre's purse was full. I left it as recompense for the innkeeper. I left, not wishing to delay and watch things put straight. I even skipped taking a trophy. Strange for a Varangian not to do so.
I am trying to get through Phase A, and I just won that battle. And here comes my next flip. More later.